My name is Mike Disa. I'm the creator, writer, and director of Sentinels, Point of No Return. And what this is bonus content called Conversations with the Crew. And this first in a series is going to be a conversation with Chris Judge about the character of Major Joe Abrams, who he plays not only in Point of No Return, but in any ongoing series we end up doing in whatever format we do it. Chris is more than just one character in this project. He's actually the co-producer of the podcast. He's been a great supportive friend through the writing of it all. I'd say this is as much his project and his baby as it is mine. He's been spectacular. He was wonderful to work with and helped us pull together the amazing cast we've gotten to work with. So what you're about to hear is a casual conversation we just had for you about the project. It might be a little choppy. For that, I apologize. We recorded it on Zoom. Sometimes things freeze. We had technical problems. We also have a video version of this podcast that is going to be available on the Sentinels website. And if you want to see Chris and I have large faces pointed at cameras as we chat on Zoom, we'd love you to come over and take a look at it. But please, again, remember Zoom, and the editing's a little choppy. And again, the reason for that is things kept freezing, as often happens. If you enjoy this content, and I hope you do, please take a few seconds to review us and like us and subscribe. It really does make a huge difference on whether or not we'll be able to continue this adventure past episode 12 as we have planned. So, thank you all very much for being here. Thank you for your support. I hope you're enjoying the Sentinels Point of No Return. You haven't seen nothing yet. It just picks up from here. But without further ado, here is the amazing Chris Judge. Okay, I'll start us off. Okay, hey everybody. Welcome to the Sentinels bonus content, Conversations with the Crew. Today we're talking with series star Chris Judge. I'm Mike Disa, the assistant sound editor, and we're here today to find out...
I mean, you're selling yourself a little short. Not that sound editors aren't important, but you're also the writer, creator, director, all of that, all of the above, many hyphenates.
Yeah, but I spent most of my time editing sound. But we're all glad you could join us today on this because first was a spoiler. Please don't watch this till you've watched the episodes up through episode 6 because there's going to be spoilers. We can't help it. We're talking about Chris's character and some of the things that happens to him. And we're specifically doing this interview to fit in after episode 6. So that's the last spoiler warning you get. So if you want to enjoy the first 5 cliffhangers, please go back and do that before you do this.
Aren't we legally required to have that big flashing spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert? Okay, well, there, I just did.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. We're now official. So what we'd like to talk to you about today is Chris's involvement with the project and how he started with the project and his reactions to it. And this is going to be a little bit more than the usual press BS you get where Disney executives stand off screen with shotguns pointed at the actors when they get asked questions. This is completely open for Chris. He's allowed to say anything he wants. And I fully support anything he has to say about the show and about the content and about why we're doing it. And, if he doesn't get radical, I will. So, and he knows that. So
I've been told on it, please don't make any statements. So I didn't. So I can't say anything verbally. So we'll scroll that really slowly there. Oh yeah. Okay. It's not pie.
Isn't that stunning, guys? And we are going to talk about the fact that he can't make a statement later. All right. But that'll go to us talking a little bit about the origins of the series and why it actually got created in the first place. But Chris, first, why don't you just let everybody know what was your first encounter with Sentinels?
Well, this is many moons ago. I guess it's got to be past the decade mark, really, when I first met you at Stars.
Yeah.
I had a development deal at Stars, and the lovely Karen Bailey, I was there for my first meeting in person at Stars, and we were going to the conference room, and she said, "You know what? I have some 2 great guys who are producers here. They'd like to meet you." And I was, well, sure. And it was you and our favorite Frenchman, Joe Goyer.
Who is, by the way, co-producing the series with.
Yes, yes, he is. And if I remember correctly, I believe you guys were editing Dante's Inferno, I believe. So we were introduced, and you right there on the spot said, "Hey, do you want to record a voice?" Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I mean, I do that all the time, Chris. You know, if there's one thing I can't stand about Hollywood is all the flirtation and weirdness about people. You know, if I admire somebody's work and I can usually, I mean, this is going to sound egotistic, but I can tell the difference between talent and BS, you know, 10 minutes into a conversation. I mean, you just get used to that. That's just repetition.
Yes.
I was like, and so after that, it's like, hey, let's work together. And
Right.
you'd be how often people are like, well, wait a minute, it's too soon to date. I'm like, all right, I'm sorry.
So we saw each other a couple more times at Stars, and you said, "Hey, I'm doing it, and I have a part that I actually before we met, I kind of wrote with you in mind." So, you know, same thing. I was like, "Sure, call me," and you did.
Yeah.
And that was Dead Space Aftermath.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of the beginning of our now over decades long relationship. And not only was I impressed by you as writer, director, producer, but you as a human being. And I decided right then and there that this was somebody I was gonna know and hopefully work with for a very long time.
Yeah.
So during Dead Space Aftermath, he said, "Do you mind if I show you this thing I wrote?" And I was, God, if it's as good as Dead Space Aftermath, of course not. Like, so, and that was Sentinels.
Yeah, Chris is being kind about the idea of that being, you know, that being the actual script. It was actually the abortive try before the script that I showed him. And in many ways, I wish I hadn't bothered you. But you were really supportive. You know, Chris and I would go out to lunch and dinner, and we would talk about it a lot. And he was huge help. And so finally, what started with basically a typical sci-fi thing about wars and politics really became about something a lot more as we just started to get to know each other, and we dug into our pasts and we talked a little bit more about how that affects us as artists. And then you're like, well, why am I skirting these issues in the script? Screw it. So I took the whole thing, I mean, and then chucked it out and redid it into what I think is a much better, more forceful, truer show. And the names are the same, but a lot of the rest of it went. But yeah, that was how we got together. It was I just kept handing him scripts.
Now you're really being modest. After my first reading of it, I said, "This is one of the greatest things I've ever read." I was absolutely blown away by what I read, and I was dead set against doing another sci-fi show.
I would imagine.
I was going through a really heavy burnout from the ending of Stargate. So the last thing I was looking for was another sci-fi project. And this wasn't just another sci-fi project. So we, as you said, continued our conversations about it. And what I didn't know about Mike, Mike is not only one of the greatest writers I ever met.
Oh.
He's also one of the most prolific. So if I said one thing, he would have 24 more pages the next day.
This is true. I do like to write. I was a bit of a burden, as you can tell. Chris was actually the grown up, and I was kind of the enthusiastic kid. But
it was. I mean, it was very fortuitous that we met. Like I said, I was just in an absolute state of burnout, and it absolutely revitalized me meeting you, and it was because of that revitalizer. Because I was ready just to become. I've joked about it through the course of my career that inside of me is a 500-pound man waiting to get out.
Well, considering how you've starved him for the last 35 years, I've never seen Chris eat.
So I was well on my way to satisfying that emergence. And then it was, I kind of just thought, you know what, maybe I have something left in the tank. And so literally because of meeting you, it inspired me to kind of get back into the best shape of my life, which led to God of War. I guess I still owe you 10% on that one.
Actually, I remember during Wacky Races, you transforming your body. It was ridiculous. I remember what you went through on Wacky Races.
I've had the great fortune of working with you for over a decade.
Yeah,
Wacky Races was another. If you haven't seen Wacky Races, please, like, I don't know, what do the kids do now? You Google it and you can watch it. I don't know. How do you?
It's ways. I mean, it's since it's such very good content and it's for the whole family. And we worked so hard on it. It was a labor of love. Warner Brothers and has treasured it and has really made it easy to find as they do all their great properties, mostly because of their awesomely effective business plan, which you can tell they're just like taking the internet by storm now. And so I think it's available.
Wait, can you just limit the burning bridges to your side of the bridge?
See, the thing is, I would write the scripts like this too.
I know. That's the fantastic thing about it. It was. I mean, that's one of the things I love about you is you have this ability to write these just biting, really, and they're still funny.
Yeah, well, yeah, or like in our show, everybody burns to death at the end. But yeah, I'm really pleased to hear what you said about the burned out thing, because actually, and this is honestly true, I'm there now. I hit a wall recently with animation and all the stuff I'm being asked to do and all the projects I'm being offered. And I don't know if this sounds familiar, but they're, just slightly less good retreads of things I've been asked to do before. And it's just, you're looking at, I don't know if I got that in me. And,
right.
and, one day, when, I called up Chris and I was like, hey, what do you think about maybe doing Sentinels as a podcast? If you had said no, I'd be 500 pounds right now.
Well, instead I said, what's a podcast?
It's me. It's me. You'd be amazed. All these microphones you see us talking about, they're all new. We had no idea what we were doing at all.
Truly.
Yeah. But I suppose we should lean this into the content of the series a little bit, because we're talking around it. So, I'll just say this, and if at any point I venture into a territory you can't comment on, just wiggle your eyebrows at me and I'll keep going.
No, that's me doing anything eyebrows is going to cost money.
Okay, wiggle something else, but remember, I can only see what's on camera. So the basic premise of our show, and I was going to let Chris talk about this, but this might be easier for him if I do it this way, is simply this. After the economic devastation of the 21st century and the failure of politicians to lead, remember, this is all fiction and we did this 4 years ago, and the failure of politicians to lead, and pandemics, I swear to God, pandemics racing unchecked across a world that no longer cared about people but only money and commodities, governments failed and the earth fell into chaos and corporations took over. Basically, government was privatized by the Big Seven. And see, we started talking about this and the cops come. Every time. And in order to feed a desperate population, because Earth has been devastated. I remember we wrote this 4 years ago, like when things weren't nearly this bad. They try to colonize the solar system to bring in the resources we need. Elon Musk and all these guys going off to Mars. But the thing is, it won't work. Bad news. I got bad news for everybody who wants to go to Mars and thinks that spaceships is going to work. It won't work. Human beings can't exist in low Earth orbit. We can't exist on the moon. We can't exist on Mars. The gravity will kill us. Our bones will break. Our hearts will stop working. There is no amount of treadmill work you can do to fix it. Our bodies can't handle that kind of radiation. You need a molten core so you have an electromagnetic field around the planet. And Mars is the most habitable place in the solar system other than Earth. I mean, and it will kill us. So we are not going to be able to do this magic space Star Trek thing that everybody's got their heads wrapped in from a generation of watching TV and movies where every place is Earth because it's, you know, cheaper to shoot on Vasquez rocks. What we thought would be an interesting twist on it is if the corporations brought their poor workers, people who were desperate, people who needed jobs at any cost. Does this at all sound familiar now? And then drag them into Gen Ed programs where they basically, and Chris came up with this term, genoform them. And through a series of crossbreeding their genes with other kinds of insects and animals, just pure experimentation, creating original genes, forced breeding, the births of thousands, perhaps millions of creatures that couldn't live, that were brutally culled, and then people were breeding again. After a generation of this, as the Earth was dying, they managed to create people who were stronger and better and more resistant to radiation and whose bodies could take, constant Gs. And they sent them off to the planets, Mars, the asteroid belts, Titan, all the places, the comets for water, all the places we desperately needed to strip mine. And they survived. They made it work. And through their labor, they rebuilt civilization. Now, I don't know if this sounds familiar to you at all, but I would call this the first 200 years of the American experiment. There was a working class for practically no money, or no expense at least, definitely no money, building the world that other people could live in. And then once that world was made, once it was made comfortable, then a whole nother set of immigrants could come and live in this comfortable place because it was no longer wilderness. The corporations who have created basically a second class of citizens, different colonies, gens, who have settled all these different places in the solar system, and they've been pitted against each other economically to keep them in line. Again, I don't know if that sounds familiar.
Yes. Well, one of the things that we agreed on very early on was I believe we termed it the burden of sci-fi. And that is be reflective of a particular cause, condition, transgression that's affecting people. And when we started talking about this, none of what's going on in the world really, of course it existed, but it wasn't at the forefront.
No, I mean, you could smell
like
it
is
coming
now,
but it wasn't there. It hadn't happened yet.
Yeah. So yes, there are the wonderful ships and space and blue people.
Yeah, and
red people. But at the crux of it is this wonderfully relatable story. And we, our relationship, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you've always been kind of the pessimist and I've always been kind of the optimist. Well, in the last, especially 3-4 months, I've become the pessimist and you've become the optimist.
I have not become an optimist.
Okay.
You've just changed that much.
Yeah, you just brought me over to the dark side.
No, I mean, it's just having to face. I mean, there's one thing for us to talk about it intellectually and to talk about our histories and to bring them into the show. I mean, the show being about the integration of a police force is really what it's about. And in space police force. I gotta remember the sci-fi fan, space force. But it's one thing to be intellectual about that. It's another thing to have to go through what's been happening in the past 3 or 4 months. It just slaps you in the face with the reality of what we're doing.
Right.
It's interesting too because Chris is doing an amazing thing. He's playing. I don't want to use the word racist because I got to think of a better word for it. A genist,
a gene. Well, that's still kind of the same thing.
But a gene purist or something. But a pure gene Earther Sentinel who is exactly the kind of cop who, you know, caused all the problems,
Mhm.
you know, in the 40s and 50s and 60s, and was exactly the kind of guy trying to resist integration when it finally started
Mhm.
happening in the police forces. So, you know, I'm sure it's a bit of a head blankety blank to like see everything that's going out there and then have to get into a character who's actually on the other side of the barricades.
Well, you know, what it has done, you know, and maybe some of you out there know that I had retreated from social media for a period of time that just recently ended, and Mike got to see what was really going on. I was kind of overwhelmed with all these feelings of things that I had gone through in my childhood, in my past, and uh, I didn't know what to do. I didn't have like so many, like all of us. There were no outlets. um, so what Sentinels did was give me a chance to not only kind of focus on something else, but also to gain some perspective, and also to uh, kind of right my wildly spinning out of orbit mind, um, because some of the and you know, I remember recording. I don't know what we've titled them now, but they were the wraparounds.
Oh, you
Your
mean the
words,
epilogue?
the epilogue, yes, the words that Mike wrote. I mean, I broke down. I don't know how many times reading it, just because they were so prescient and so. It was like you like saw inside my soul into like really what I was thinking and feeling, and it so uh, was salve uh, on my freshly opened wounds. Um, it was just brilliant, you know. And you everyone's struggling right now with what can we do to help? What can we do? And you know what you reminded me of is one of the gifts that we have is storytelling. We lose sight of what we do, and not to make it important, but we lose sight of what we do for a living gives people like escapism or whatever. Just a brief respite from what's going on in the world right now, which is so desperately needed. And just your ability to actually put, well, it used to be pen to paper, but to encapsulate feelings and thoughts and emotions. It's just such a wonderful gift. And I really feel so honored to be able to share uh, this process with you, and to be able to say the words that you write. It's really a gift.
Well, it wouldn't exist without you. So I mean, it's
I don't know about that,
but you know, it's you're right about the idea that we do desperately need to escape. I remember, and I've been recently talking about this myself. I mean, I don't know why we're both going through such traumas all at the same time in our lives. Maybe it's our ages, but you know, I've just recently decided to just come out and talk about my past. I did it a little bit on
mm,
Facebook. I'm recording podcast interviews. I'm doing stuff, and well, as much of it as I can talk about,
mm, mm.
you know, federal law and all.
Yeah.
But the night before, I'm going over your dialogue, always asking myself, you know, Jesus, I can't give him crap to say. I just can't. There's got to be more to it, you know. There's just got to be more to it. And that epilogue, I think, was, you know, something we had both been talking around for a couple of
Mhm,
months.
mhm,
And so the epilogue, guys, for those you know, is at the end of the first chapter of Sentinels, at the end of the 12-part epic Point of No Return. You know, we don't know if we're going to do any more episodes. You know, we
mm.
don't know if this goes on as a podcast or as a TV series or just as a fond memory, or is, you know, lost in the rubble of LA after the riots. But the epilogue is what we think should happen afterwards. Or at least what I think happens afterwards.
Mm.
And it's powerful. So I hope you'll stick around and listen to that, because Chris knocked that out of the park, and then we have to sit on it for 2 months, which is too
I
bad.
know, right?
Yeah.
But it is. It's it's a great ride. It really is, and it's one of the great things about our work. It's wildly entertaining, but it it, it will allow people a lane in which to talk, and it's our
Yeah,
job can be really great at times.
it it can, especially when no one's paying us.
Yep.
I don't know about you, but for me, that's about the only time I can do anything I want to do.
Uh,
But I mean, so I guess this has been kind of emotional stuff like that. But I guess we should go over what's happened in the series up to this point. So Chris, for those of you who haven't guessed yet, plays Major Joseph Abrams, and Abrams is a wonderful, complicated character. So I'll give you the rough outlines, and then Chris can fill in how he's been working in that space. He is a classic Sentinels officer, old school Sentinels officer, purebred Terran, and his job's been to go out there and keep the peace and save people, and he's been fighting, raiders and blackjackers and trying to keep the peace in a miserable, horrible situations out there, because some of those colonies are practically lawless, and other ones are just corporate factories. And he's been out there risking his life and getting the crap kicked out of him for 25 years. So he's got that weathered cop, us versus them, hard crust thing going on him. And what has just happened in episode 6 is we've just found out that the distress call from the remains of Saturn that the rest of the team has been assembled to respond to has been Abrams. And Abrams is stuck in a ship that has been infected with what we're calling presently a technovirus that is altering the ship and the crew into weapons for the alien invaders who are slaughtering it. So he's been the lone survivor running around in this ship, killing his old crewmates, desperate to survive for months while they've been trying to figure out a way to get back to him. So that's who this guy is, right? This is not a guy who spends a lot of time writing poetry. Having said that, and Chris knows all of the surprises we have in store for the series as it comes on, there's way more to Abrams than this. He was the only survivor of the Roanoke disaster, which took Jack's father, and which is part of our prelude that you can hear Chris do beautifully, where he gives you the background of the series. It's one of the bonus episodes on the podcast. And something happened there that has given him foreknowledge of what's going on, and how much foreknowledge he has, and how many specific things he knows. We will reveal as we move forward. But he's kind of got a separate burden beyond everybody else. And as you get the feeling as you go through this first episode, this may not be the first time he's been trapped in a ship with a bunch of things turning into monsters. So much of the long-term mystery of the series centers around Chris's character, because the younger guys are just reacting to what's in front of them, and it's the run and jump of the week and the problem of the week to deal with. But Chris's character, Joe Abrams, is part of the ongoing narrative thread that arches over the 5 years we had planned for this. So with a character so complicated and so full of contradictions, what do you think of Abrams, Chris?
Well, I love him. I've been blessed with a career of playing characters that had a pretty straightforward trajectory. So this is the first time that I've really got a chance to dig into a really conflicted character. So I think the first thing I had to do was determine who Abrams is. And it was more difficult than I imagined, because I was also going through, who am I? So the infrastructure of a character always comes from somewhere within the performer. And it's always up to the performer to determine how much of myself do I want to divulge. And I just thought it'd be perfect if I allowed the conflict in me to be evident in the conflict of Abrams. What he's going to go through, but not to foreshadow it by what he's going through now.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the genesis of him determining who he is. And, the funny thing is, I would decide something, and you would throw it. Oh, and by the way, in season, he's gonna do that.
Oh, yeah.
Or previously, this is Mike, you didn't tell me that before.
I know. But that's always the problem is, do you play the moment or you play the next moment? And it was probably harder for Chris because I told him so much, but I got giddy. I couldn't help it.
But thank God, it just adds to it when you decide who he is, and then you throw circumstance at it.
Yeah.
It's the age-old thing, ordinary guy in extraordinary circumstance.
Oh,
Which is, as I just touched on, it's new for me. Usually I play extraordinary guys, and extraordinary, there's nothing, and I mean this just as a there's nothing extraordinary about okay, that's too much of a spoiler. Who Abrams is a guy just like everyone else who wants happiness or peace or what. So there's nothing extraordinary about him in that respect. What's extraordinary is the circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just found it really cool to kind of just play a guy, not an alien, not a god, just a guy caught in an extraordinary circumstance. So that's kind of how I had to really start the process of defining who he is.
And Chris's character, his soul is in jeopardy when we meet him. He's more than 2 steps down the road to damnation at this point.
Yes. Hey, Mike, my daughter's actually leaving the country tomorrow.
What? Where's she going?
So, to Canada and then back to England.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, she can travel because she has a Canadian passport. Otherwise, she couldn't get into Canada.
She'll be the only survivor.
Yeah. So we're doing the interview tomorrow at.
Yeah. No, we could cut this.
So can we pick this up then?
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm sorry. Okay. I talked too much.
Oh, no. It was great. It was absolutely great.
All right. Well, we'll pick this up later. For everybody, this is Chris Judge, Lieutenant Abrams, the co-producer of the series, and the reason Sentinel exists. He spent a few minutes talking to his fans today while his daughter is about to leave for Canada, where he'll never see her again because they're going to build a wall. I swear to God, they're building a wall.
Yes, they are, actually.
And he gave us the time for this special event, and thank you so much. And we'll pick this up with Chris Part 2
yes,
sometime soon.
Hey, thank you, Mike D.
Thank you.
I love you, brother.
I love you
Cheers.
too. So that was part 1 of my conversation with Chris about his characters and Sentinel's Point of No Return. Please keep an eye out for more episodes with the rest of the cast and crew as we move forward. Also, please, as I said before, if you like this series, please support us by subscribing and rating us, liking us, and giving us a review if you could. Even 1 or 2 words just makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for everything. We'll see you next episode.